those first 9 were really the first ones to go sour in the US. And because when we then made La Folie, people were like, what is this? For me, having grown up with Rodenbach, drinking Rodenbach since I was 13, you're like, what's wrong with it? You just don't get it. But so sour beers in the meantime and have become way more popular. And there's so much stuff that you can do with a beer, flavor-wise, and stretch it in different directions that it's never ends.
Welcome to the Craft Beer Travel and Adventure Podcast with Living a Stout Life. This is where we sit down with creative thinkers, on-the-road adventurers, and craft beer lovers. Your hosts, Ken and April, live, work, and travel in a 24-foot RV in search of inspiring stories around a great beer.
Are you ready for this?
Ready for what?
One of the cherished original La Folie barrels, PH2, has been in service for over 2 decades. This is a beer barrel.
PH2 is a beer barrel?
PH2 is a beer barrel.
Okay.
This special release features light farmhouse Brett aroma, pleasant medium acidity, hints of kiwi, Riesling grape, light-bodied with a dry finish.
Drooling? That sounds fantastic.
This bottle contains a live beer carefully aged and selected for its current flavor profile. Please enjoy fresh.
I am going to enjoy fresh. And Kenny, Can you please tell a little, very much of a hint? I'm not sure about that grammar, but anyhow, it's because I'm kind of just drooling over what I'm about to drink. But can you tell us the story about where we got this PH2 barrel-aged golden sour? Brewed and packaged by
Purpose in Fort Collins, Colorado. And PH2, so in the podcast episode itself, when we go into our interview today, you'll hear more of the story about this particular barrel. But this was a barrel from New Belgium that found its way back home to its, I don't know if I would say owner, curator.
Ooh, curator.
Curator is probably a better word.
Brilliant word.
And this beer is actually called PH2, which is the name of the barrel. So this beer is from that barrel, and we were gifted one of the last few bottles left of this beer. So yeah, I'm drooling very much, and I am super stoked because it's from Peter Bouckaert at Purpose Brewing, and Peter Bouckaert, formerly of New Belgium Brewing, and the guy who really turned America onto what a sour beer could really be.
Yeah, so we have Peter, and we have his business partner and wife, Frezi, and also their partners, James and Ashley, at Purpose Brewing and Cellars, on this podcast episode. And we were honored to be able to talk to all of them. It was so great. And now I am honored to have Kenny crack open this bottle. Please do so. Yeah, baby. So sorry y'all can't drink this, but you know what? There's always space at our table, so hopefully you're joining us.
You're ruining the moment.
I'm not. Because
Just
I'm
kidding, you're not.
Inviting them to crack open their own special beer and chat with us. Hurry up, because I want to drink this. I'm drinking it. Oh my gosh, that smell. Thank you, Peter, Frezi, James, and Ashley. This is brilliant. Cheers. Oh, wait. Oh, that's a full glass. That's why it was like that. I think it's like the perfect balance of tartness, along with exactly what was described on there, like the grapes.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not overly
sour.
Yeah.
Right. Sour is, in my opinion, sour is not the best descriptor for these types of beer, even though they are somewhat sour.
Let's save that for the podcast too, because we get into a pretty good discussion on sour.
We did.
When we get there, yeah.
We did get a good discussion.
But you were talking earlier off mic about how, I mean, in all reality, the American craft beer scene is pretty young.
Mm-hmm.
so you were talking earlier
Great.
off mic about how many other people from many other countries have brought a lot of the beers that we love now.
Oh yeah, and that is due to the craft beer scene starting in the first place. It's not like we just imported all these great brewers from around the world and then craft beer boomed. It's more people kind of experienced what a good beer could be, and they wanted that in the United States. And before craft beer really took off in the U.S., we, for all intents and purposes, we only had a couple different kinds of beers for the most part, and they were all relatively the same. Most of the big companies were all the same beers. And then craft beer came along and started making all these cool, IPAs and pale ales and stouts and porters and ambers and different things, and gave us flavor in our beer. But then we, a lot of people traveled around the world and experienced all these other great beer cultures, like in Germany and Belgium and all around the world, really. Just all kinds of cool stuff that these beers have been made for hundreds of years.
Hundreds,
if at least hundreds.
Thousands.
Some of them thousands.
You will hear Peter saying like sours have been around for, I think he said, like 13,000 years.
Well, yeah, sours have probably been around since the dawn of time, because that, just by the nature of making a beer without fermentation control and like knowing what, like, beer was being made before people knew what yeast was, and they didn't have refrigeration and all this stuff.
And hops?
So
What the
it's
hell are
like
hops?
you just put crap together and it became something. It fermented over time, and people went, huh, that's pretty good. And it gets me happy. So they drank it. Ballsy dudes. But that we've gotten so spoiled in the United States, because we have either craft brewers who have done a fantastic job bringing other beers of the world and recreating them in this country, or we've been lucky enough to have folks like Peter Bouckaert come to this country and introduce us to what he was making in Belgium.
Speaking of Peter and Frezi and James and Ashley, should we let them talk?
That might be a good idea, because that was a really fun conversation we had with them, and it went on for a minute.
I think it would be very purposeful
Oh boy, no tease there.
if we introduce them. Yeah?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so.
Here's the team from Purpose Brewing Cellars in Fort Collins, Colorado.
It's okay if you cuss in Flemish; it doesn't count
It was
because
German.
our audience.
Oh,
that was
German.
German.
It's actually Flemish, but the Germans don't understand it.
I thought you said earlier, how do we cuss?
How to be cussing.
Oh yeah,
Hot
totally. Can.
verdomme.
Maybe we should have a lesson in language, and that should be the podcast instead of
Yeah.
talking.
Frezi got red cards in soccer because she was cussing all the time. And I never got it because I say Schweinebubberfleisch, and the ref was like,
What did you
what's
just
that? I'm like, that's German for the weather is nice. So I never got one.
All right, well, here's the deal, though. For as much as I would love to have language lessons from you guys, and I really would, however, it would just be a shame if we're here at Purpose and we don't talk beer.
Yeah, correct.
So,
We do have to talk some beer.
talk
for sure.
beer, yeah. So,
I think
let's
that's
talk
what
beer.
your podcast was about.
It is.
So maybe we should at least talk a little bit about it.
And travel.
Yeah.
So welcome to
Travel.
Craft Beer Travel and Adventure Podcast with all four of you guys. We're here at Purpose Brewing. I guess I can get a little bit serious now. Ashley, James, what's your guys' last names?
I'm Figure. He's Lloyd.
James Lloyd.
And James Lloyd. Great. And
Mine is almost like a swear word. Frezi van Rafelhem.
I like it.
I don't think I could say that.
All right.
So I got exactly.
I don't think I could
Americans
repeat it.
cannot say that. Frezi van Rafelhem. Let's roll in your R's at least 3 times.
Frezi van Raffelhem.
Well, yeah.
So yeah, I go with Peter Bouckaert here. So I do have 2 passports talking about travel. I do have 2 different names on my passports talking about schizophrenic.
Nice.
Well,
They're gonna have a hard time tracking you down.
I was gonna say, that's really confused the government. And last but not least, we're here with Peter Bouckaert.
You know my name. Okay.
I didn't know you guys' last names though, so yeah. But anyhow, welcome you guys. We're happy to have you joining us, and we're at Purpose Brewing in Cellars. I want to hear more about Purpose and like how the four of you came together and where Purpose kind of came from.
But conceptually, I think is where I would like to start. In New Belgium, we had Bell Dashville, who's fantastic experience as a brewer, building a facility of 500,000 barrels, and then trying to start it up, and then you hire people, and it became a really fun place to go because we had really good people, and then after a while I was useless there because we had good people.
Let's take that a step backwards.
Okay, we're going back in time.
Well,
Peter is somebody who, one of everybody's main purposes in life should be learning. When you don't learn enough, you move on to something else. In Rodenbach, I saw his face turning, was like, oh, there we go. Peter is not learning enough, we will have to find something else. We both love traveling for a long time. We're like, well, let's travel to the States, and then we had the opportunity to go to a beer conference in Boston, where we met Kim and Jeff, who started New Belgium. We met them and they asked us to move over. Peter was like, forget that one. Nobody in Belgium is just going to move to the States for nothing.
We just had started a small brewery also, kind of this size, in
guys
Belgium while working at Rodenbach and the police. So
You were doing that on the weekends, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, you're kind of stuck in Rodenbach. You're not learning enough. You don't like it right now. You're kind of over what you have been, over your lifespan over there. So don't we go look at the brewery in New Belgium? There's a lot of stories in there between as well. But we came over here, we saw New Belgium, Peter saw Castle, I saw the mountains. We're like, okay, let's do this. That was a huge learning opportunity, and that was in '96. In 2016, I saw Peter's face turning again. I was like,
Wait, I want to see, what does his face look like? Peter, do you have a look on your face when it's time to move on?
he's still learning right now. The learning has been renewed, so he doesn't have that look now.
I was having fun in the bar in New Belgium, but I knew it was time for Peter to move on. So Peter.
Yeah, I took my second sabbatical. You got every 10 years sabbatical for a couple of weeks. And I drove out west from here, and I made sure I stopped at the brewery all the time. And for me, it happened at Santa Darius in Santa Cruz. I was talking with Adair there, and there's still so much beauty in American craft. Hey, if I want to keep on adding to beauty in American craft, what should I do? And so for me, the idea became smaller and smaller. And I want to start something small. Could I make like a brewery where I have one beer a day, and the next day another beer? That's kind of stupid. And so kind of trying to test it out, and I kept on talking with friends as I went. Cascade Brewing in Portland was a fantastic conversation also, because somebody a bit older than me who was kind of worn out of the craft industry, and so I just need to go small. And so coming back to Fort Collins, kind of mulled over that. There was a brewery here. There was a small system, a 4-barrel system, and the owner...
In this location where we're at right now? Okay.
The owner was kind of wanting to sell, but he was asking too much because he wanted to get his debt recuperated, but I didn't need debt to buy. Right. So we bought it
2016.
31st of December in 16, while I was still working in Rodenbach. in New Belgium.
Okay, wait, which brewery?
And we started here. There was a regular brewery. We bought a whole bunch of barrels. We started brewing 4 barrels. Got more and more barrels from friends. And once that was kind of done, we started, maybe we should make a bar. We erected this wall with a forklift, and we're like, maybe we could do like a bar here. And so a bar came out of the ground. And
so behind the bar there was a wall before that?
No, the wall of barrels.
So you erected
because
the wall
it was completely open. The bar from the other brewery was at the end of this place.
Oh, okay.
And so we racked all the barrels, we bought barrel racks, boom, and we had a brewery, and we opened in August 17. So
And for our listeners, when you walk in, it's like a cozy, I think it's a cozy cabin. Like it's wooded everywhere, and there's different styles of wood, and like you said, the barrel wall back there is just.
So one of our goals was to make it like, we like that. You guys like living small, we like living small right now once the kids are very gone for both of us. Why do you invite your friends now? We wanted to have a second living room.
Okay.
Perfect.
Like a second space. That's
Yeah.
a little space.
it's all recuperated wood. We got it in part from another brewery. The door is from Beadlekill. Jeff Lebesch, who started New Belgium, has a ranch in the mountains, and so he started woodworking. And so he brought. I just texted him, look, I need so much wood, and he's like, okay, why when? Now, like, what do you ask? And he's like, I'm just giving it. And so there's bullets in it because it's hunting territory.
Okay.
But so it's all, and the barrels are the same.
Okay.
But then it was really fun here, opening, running the bar. I'm gonna jump in time also if you don't.
And then the same thing happened just for when Peter resigned at New Belgium. The first thing he said to Kim was, I'm not learning anymore. Kim was like, so her face turned on that one.
So, yeah, I had to give my resign in New Belgium. So New Belgium wanted me to stay on. A place like this, I didn't want to leave. Slam the door when leaving, and so I almost stayed until the end of 17. So left New Belgium then, and here we were pretty much doing it all, brewing, running the bar. It was really fun, and then COVID hit. And we are not a packaging brewery.
Yeah.
Right.
And so people picked up, we partnered with a food truck, and so we were selling the food and the beer basically from the tap. Here we were open for 2 hours, and people came in, and their order was already online, so we had to give them the bottles, and so we started learning Spanish, and we looked to prepare to sell our house, because once this is done, maybe we can do something new again. And so sold our house. Spanish was very handy because we've been traveling a lot in Central and South America. But then this place, how do we run this place? And paths crossed with, I think it was with Ashley first.
Yeah, it was at Mockery.
Yeah, in a brewery.
Oh, Mockery.
Yeah.
Nice.
And they were looking at starting a brewery there. I need to leave it to you guys.
Oh, now I want to. Yeah, like how
Yeah.
did you guys cross paths and start talking about like owning a brewery at Mockery?
Yeah, we basically moved from Wisconsin, and Wisconsin's great. It's a great drinking community. Lots
Yes,
of
it is.
good beer.
People like their drink there.
We were just there this summer.
And we love beer. So we came to Denver for the weather and the beer. And after some time, we'd been homebrewing a lot, and we bought like 2 barrels for our living room, like actual wooden barrels. And I remember this is so stupid because we didn't know anyone. We brewed in shifts to fill those barrels.
With our 5-barrel
With our 5-barrel
electric kettle.
Oh my god.
Because we didn't know anyone at the time, so that was what we did. I know it sounds so terrible, but it was really good. So we had a Flanders and a dark saison. And then we were like, I guess we're in this. Like, I guess we're gonna start a brewery. And then we figured out that that's like really hard.
I'll back up a sec. So whenever we moved here from Wisconsin, we met friends through the homebrewing social clubs.
Okay.
And we participated in a few of the competitions. And actually the first place that we, I think, met Peter and Frezi face to face was at the 2019 Big Beers Festival. Or maybe it was 2020, right before COVID.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Big Beers was always.
Yeah. I don't know if
Don't remember big beers.
Not a lot of people were. Yeah, we competed and got a medal in the Imperial Stout category, and then for us before that it was always just fun, and then we were like, okay, maybe we're actually doing okay at this, and so we got more into it, started competing in more competitions and started doing okay. And then we got really lucky that our real estate agent in Denver was good friends with the owner of Mockery.
Okay.
So we were talking to her about our interests and everything like that, and she was like, "Oh, you should just go talk to Zach. Maybe you guys could hang out." So we did, just volunteered there a little bit, milled in, and hung out with him for a bit, and then Ashley kept hanging out there, and then they were and yeah, so that's kind of how we got started into that space. And you worked there as an assistant brewer
for like a year, yeah. So just helping Woody out, and that was it was really eye-opening, and it made me realize it was going to be very difficult. Like that, I'm not sure that either I or James could be the head brewer, basically. So we were kind of in a situation where we wanted to open a brewery, but I needed more experience, at brewing on a professional level in order to do that. So then, of course, Peter walks in one day, right, and is like, "Hey, I'm here," and it was amazing. Of course, we'd already met before, but we got really lucky there, and then obviously, as Peter said, he was looking for an opportunity to sort of, do something different, and we just kind of had a meeting, and then everything just fell together.
Yeah, and it was really perfect too, because as we were thinking about starting our own brewery in Denver, we had actually modeled a lot of our business plan and a lot of our thoughts off of Purpose. We were coming up here like once a month already just to come and hang out, and we love this place so much, and it was like we were thinking about, well, what we have to change if we got involved in a different brewery, and then when Purpose came around, it was like, oh, we have to change literally nothing because this is exactly what we wanted in the beginning. So it was very, very fortunate.
Yeah, it sounds like a perfect meeting, because you guys were looking for something, and you guys were looking to maybe not do the day-to-day every day all the time. After having been brewing for, well, Peter, you've been brewing for what? Your entire adult life.
2 years.
A long time.
He's only 21.
2 years? Do you really want to be 21? Okay, he's considering it.
Oh yeah.
But was there? Obviously, as a younger brewer, a newer brewer, it's got to be amazing to find somebody who wants you to work with them, who's known as such a master brewer.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then, by the same token, was that enticing for you, Peter, to have somebody who hadn't been brewing for, say, 20 or 30 years and had their own set way of doing things? Was that important to you, or?
For me, the most important part was the boring part. So there's a lot of aspects if you run your own small business, and for me, when it's new, I'm very excited. Even bookkeeping, is very fantastic. But after a while, it gets. Our first meeting with the accountant was hilarious. He's like, "Can I get all the invoices?" I'm like, "What about this spreadsheet?" And he's like, "Oh, you have it all."
You're surprised.
I've seen enough financials to be able to do something for such a small brewery. Right. There's not much in and out here, but purchasing grain, dealing with the city, and there's a lot of aspects related to brewing that are not brewing. Mm-hmm. I'm a brewer. As a brewer in Rodenbach and in New Belgium, you always get sucked in things until the Peter principle, until you're completely useless, basically. And so I've done that before. But for me, there was a really lot of learning, because here you have to brew, you have to tap the beer, you change the toilet paper. It's all important, because if somebody doesn't have toilet paper, it's going to be a bad experience.
Yeah.
And so you need to be focused on that. I really loved running it, but it was, again, the rut starts to kick in, and I'm like, what should I do next? And so...
Yeah, Peter really wanted to start small again, and I still love New Belgium, so I stayed on in New Belgium. So I was working the bar in New Belgium and the bar here for a long time, and then COVID hit it. And then we were really like, okay, we need somebody to help us now. So thankfully, James and Ashley fill in our lab. And they have always been so wonderful, so fun, so eager to work, like you just heard. They were eager to start one by us. I've been working as a bartender mainly in my off hours since I was 16 years old. So just for 4 years, you know. And Peter, the same thing. You started in '89. No, sure, I didn't say that.
Oh,
You were lying anyway, so.
What was I like? 21? I was before that.
so who's like? Are you doing the brewing a lot now, James? Or both of you together, or?
So we also have a brewer here too.
Okay.
And yeah, so the team is the four of us. So me and Ashley and Peter and Frezi. And then we have a taproom manager and a brewer.
Okay.
So relatively small team overall for sure.
So are you? Do you get involved a little
I
bit in brewing?
do all the boring stuff that Peter was talking about.
Okay.
So anything that involves a spreadsheet.
Do you
or
miss But do you miss any part of the little bit of the brewing that you did when you were at home and doing at home?
For
brewing,
sure, yeah, and it's still fun. I was just this morning talking to a friend here in town that we're going to do the Colorado Brewers Guild Collab Fest with. So we're still participating in some of the recipe creation and some of the ideas and everything like that. But,
And that's the fun part, like James just said. That's the fun part about Purpose. If you want to brew, like the one you were drinking, our whole family brewed that on Christmas Day, and that has been our Christmas tradition for a long time.
To take it slow?
Yeah.
And that's really great.
So you brew when you want to brew, although you do have a brewer. It's still our jam, and we do what we want to do.
Is that the same for you? You guys both? Do you guys you get to
The
brew
whole
when you want to
family,
brew, and you just said the whole family did that? And
Yeah, and we do a lot of interesting ingredients here.
Yes.
Maybe Peter can talk about his philosophy on beer and styles and ingredients here in a sec. But it's always a very collaborative kind of approach to any recipes or any beers we make. So if one of us goes to, say, the farmer's market and we find an interesting ingredient, or Peter brings back some random wood he found in Brazil, we add those to the beers, and it's a very collaborative kind of approach.
So conceptually, when I was thinking maybe one beer a day, that's not going to work. What about 4 beers a weekend? Yeah, and so that's kind of where we stuck to. It evolves, but it hasn't evolved too much. But I think we have opportunity to evolve in different directions still. But we just keep on switching our beers out, and so. Thinking about for Collins, we have a pretty big saturation in breweries. I think we don't have that many beer geeks, but we have beer lovers. And so if they come to Purpose, they're gonna come for, we're gonna see what they have. And most of what we sell here is a flight, because we never use style in it. So it's always like, what is this exactly? Oh, smooth tracker, I know that because that's a barrel. It's barrel 33, but all the rest, there's just descriptors of flavors. And so for people walking in first time here, it's relatively hard. And so a little conversation on the bar can help, but pretty much everybody ends up with a flight, and then they judge from there what they're gonna drink.
I mean, the first time we came here, we had a flight. Yep.
Yeah.
And we had that's what kind of started the whole thing. Is we had such a great conversation with Ashley about it. And when we were walking out, I was like, "Damn, she knew her shit." That was like one of the first things I said. So.
Well, but maybe it's the right moment to talk a little bit about the name and the logo. The first thing I wanted was Peter Bouckaert.
Okay.
PB. So then, what do you make with a P? And I thought purpose, a new fun, like. New Belgium, when we arrived there, they had 35 employees. So we grew that to over 1,000 employees. 1,200, 1,300 right now. So what do we do? What do we want? We want to be creative again. Like even in the bar when I was working, everybody came in. What is new this week? So Peter turned around. What is new this week? Well, I'm going to tell you what is new this week. I'm going to make four new beers every week. If you come in, you say like, hey, I really loved this one last week. Too bad. You should have grabbed the growler. So Peter Bouckaert, Purpose, new purpose of a brewery, new ideas, fresh ideas. And then when you look at the logo, the purpose of an acorn is to become an oak tree. The purpose of an oak tree is to make one of our barrels. The purpose of those barrels is to make you nutty. And if you really look at our logo, even Belgium, the shape of Belgium is hidden in there. We also want to hit the height, the shape of Colorado in there, but that didn't fit.
It's not very organic.
Colorado's very square, so
Ashley and I have joked about finding a way to squeeze Wisconsin into there.
yeah, he could work that in there, I think.
Yeah,
at least parts of it. So we did want to get an update from you, Peter, because I don't know how many people know the story about your original 9 barrels at New Belgium, but I know that you started with 9 barrels there. Those eventually went out into the world away from New Belgium at other breweries, and I know that you got at least 2 of those barrels back here, and you've been searching for the other 7.
But are those 2 still here too, though?
Well, yeah, we want to know, are those 2 original barrels here, and have you had any progress on the other 7?
No, not on the
No?
other 7, no. So
Can you back up a little bit and tell our listeners like a little bit about the 2 barrels that we're talking about?
when I started in New Belgium, there was Belgian styles. It was like, what is that? Like, isn't Belgium the capital of Brussels or something? People didn't have any clue about Belgian beer and having a brewery like this. But since I came from Rodenbach here into working in New Belgium, they're like, well, maybe we should start. Oh no, we were going to make a quick sour, kind of a kettle sour, but that was before anybody was making kettle sours. So we tried and we completely screwed it up, and we got like that vomit aroma. So we stopped that, and I think we made another specialty beer for a seasonal or something. But we got 9 barrels. And the 9 barrels came from a winery here in Loveland. And then we got 3 more. So the 9 first were called PH1, PH2, OCA1 and OCA2. That was Old Cherry Ale. Was one of the beers of New Belgium. Abbey 1 and Abbey 2. So AB1 and AB2, and there's 2. And the last one, number 9, the odd one was 222. And so 9 became 12, 12 became 100. So then I started buying fooders, and we didn't really have space in New Belgium. We were always growing, and they're like, you're gonna have to get rid of barrels. So I sold them for what I bought them. I bought them for $15, so I sold them for $15. And people with their pickup truck came, and they picked them up, and they disappeared. We didn't keep track where they went. And so we got fooders, we got more fooders. And then Lauren Salazar at a certain point, who was at that point working in the wood cellar, or sensory still at that point, she was at Russian River, and she sees one of them, PH1, out there. And so PH1 got bottled in Russian River in a new beer with a shun, because I don't remember Vinny's beer, they're all with shuns. But he gave it back to New Belgium. So he was like, okay, let's just give it back to New Belgium because you miss it, so we'll bring it back. In the meantime, we figured out that the Rare Barrel in Berkeley had actually named their brewery after this barrel that they had seen at Vinny's.
Okay.
And so they called their brewery the Rare Barrel. So we gave PH1 to the Rare Barrel.
Oh, wow.
And so they were in awe, like, oh wow, the barrel that's named their brewery is finally here.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And so then I started up here, and one day Alex and who is it from the Rare Barrel came visiting here, and we were wandering around, and I say, look, I always brand on the left lower side my barrels, and they start laughing, and I'm like, and they leave. Okay, what did I say wrong? And they actually had hits PH1 here in the scrubs. And they brought it in, and again against the light I couldn't see. I was like, oh, I get another barrel because we already had 2 barrels from the Rare Barrel, and so then I'm like, oh, this is PH1, and PH1 is always bigger than wherever it's gonna go, and the brewery that it sits in is just a host for a little bit, but the barrel is bigger than the brewery. And so we moved it on. We were hit during COVID then, so we brought it in 2021 probably to side project, and so it's in its last fill there with spontaneous fermentation, and it's going to move on again.
So why?
So PH1 has moved on from here.
Yeah.
To
PH1 is
side
gone.
project. Okay.
Yeah, it would have been way too long.
So now we have PH2 and 222. Yes, we have those two.
PH1 hung a long time out here, but because in the meantime I found PH2 and we put them back next to each other. So after 20 years, those guys were sitting together.
Right.
If you sneaked in here very silently, you heard them giggling. Right? It's hilarious. I'm like, okay, we're gonna leave them a little bit together, but then we're gonna separate them again.
And you said now you have 222 here as well?
Yeah, 222. That was a
So
funny
now you
one.
have PH2 and 222 at Purpose.
Yeah, we looked. We thought we had an abbey located, but it could have been cut up as a planter.
Oh no.
It was in Denver, and we never found it. We looked at all the barrels in Crooked Stave, and none of them were saying anything. And then we looked at planters, but some of the planters were.
Well, and it could be so easy for those barrels to end up somewhere that nobody knows the history behind it, or that there is much of a story. But for people that don't know barrel aged beer that much, and this is very different than just whiskey barrel aged beer that we think of as like a stout thrown in a bourbon barrel or something. This is fermenting beer in these barrels, and these barrels, and you can probably explain it a lot better than I do, but each barrel kind of has its own character, and I think that's what you were referring to as PH1. Like, it just has this huge character, this huge personality that isn't meant to be at one place for too long. So
It is a traveling barrel, and sometimes I always say the barrels are Peter's kids, and even my two sons, actually biological kids, they're totally different. Every barrel is totally different.
Yeah, and so that's what we wanted to do here. Then, how do we? So those first 9 were really the first ones to go sour in the U.S. And because when we then made La Folie, people were like, "What is this?" For me, having grown up with Rodenbach, drinking Rodenbach since I was 13, you're like, "What's wrong with it?" You just don't get it. But so sour beers in the meantime and have become way more popular, especially the kettle sours, I think, because those are easy, and with some fruit you can mask the off flavors of a kettle sour. But then barrel aging is, of course, more involved, but gives you more complex beer flavor-wise. Every barrel is different, so we also treat them different. But for me, it starts with the selection of the barrel. Where does the barrel come from? So all those barrels come from friends, and we know everybody behind the barrels, and that's how they got here. And there's 2 Allagash barrels, and when I left New Belgium and I became public, everybody's like, "Oh, congrats, and what the heck are you doing?" Well, I'm just starting my own brewery. Would you mind sending me some barrels? And so that's how 222 came in here. 222, one or another way, ended up in Lost Abbey. And so Tommy sent me 2 barrels, and I flip it, and I'm like, "Oh, this is 222." And he didn't even know that was one of the original 9.
really, he didn't know he sent you one of your original barrels.
And so maybe he has more. We're gonna
Right.
right there, and we
see
should,
how we get at the end of the month.
check.
Well, and he's had his hand in helping a few other breweries get started, so you might have a big surge going. I know we're headed down to Tucson pretty soon, where Moto Sonora is.
Yes,
Yeah, and
that's
And
right.
Tommy's
Yeah.
big at Moto Sonora,
Yes,
so
yes.
we might have to go look at some barrels for you. While we're down there, I'll ask him if we can look at their barrels real quick and see if we can locate another one or
Yeah,
two,
we
maybe.
found Tommy 2 years ago there. We were biking in Tucson, and
Oh,
he's
yeah.
texting like, "Are you biking in Arizona?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "In Phoenix?" No, in Tucson. He's like, "I'm biking in Tucson."
I'm here too.
Oh, cool.
And so that's
That's
how
a
we
great
ended up
place
in
for
Moto
it.
Sonora.
Yeah, that's a wonderful
fun.
little brewery.
Have you guys
Great place.
been at all, like to Tucson or traveling in different like areas or?
No, I mean, not too much in the Southwest.
Okay.
We did a pretty awesome road trip from Wisconsin up to Portland, Maine, and back.
Okay.
Back in 2017. But
So maybe transitioning a little bit into travel and things, or what are some of the things that you noticed along that road trip, or breweries that you visited, or just places, or just mentions?
I mean, we had a wonderful time in Vermont. Everywhere in Vermont was amazing, and
Yeah, we did not spend enough time in Vermont.
yeah.
Tell us more about Vermont.
We were lucky enough. Kind of a friend had a family cabin in the middle of Vermont, so that was
Okay,
kind
it
of.
was a mansion on the river.
James says a family cabin.
No.
Family cabin. Family
It was like a 4-story built on like a bluff, and so it was like 4 stories up. But like
it was a nice cabin. It was a really nice cabin. Yeah, it was really nicely centrally located in the state, so we could take day trips to Stowe and to Burlington and everything like that, and then we drove over to Portland, Maine, and spent a few days there, and drove home with, I think, probably like we filled up the back of our Cherokee with like put down the seats. The whole back of it was like full of beer, and it was a really wonderful trip.
So you could have started a tap room at that point, basically.
Yeah, we started a beer bar with everything we brought back. Yeah.
Portland's got a pretty good, like Maine has a pretty good.
The whole layout around Allagash was really awesome. That they have the main brewery, but then there's this strip of almost like startup breweries that kind of spun out of Allagash or somehow part of that ecosystem. And
I love them.
Yeah.
Like, it's so different. Sometimes places are really competitive and they're like, nah, you can stay away. But Allagash was like, my babies.
Right. That's kind of fun to see that's one of the great things about beer too, is there's such a great community around it. And of course you're all competing for customers, but so what? You don't have to hate each other. It doesn't have to be a terrible thing. It's a fun thing. Because really the breweries seem to just foster interest in other breweries too. But one of the places like you're mentioning with Allagash having that influence, we noticed the same thing in Bend, Oregon with Deschutes. Like there are probably about 30 breweries in Bend now, and I swear every time we went into a brewery there, it was like, oh, so-and-so used to work at Deschutes. So-and-so used to be at Deschutes. And they were all, they've all come up with cool things of their own.
I think that's the beer community. I don't know any other company or any other industry who has such a huge community feel as brewing. It's even New Belgium, or like here in Fort Collins, we have our internal email that all the breweries contact each other if they were needing something or some questions have. We have our email that goes around almost every day.
That's one of the things I've always loved is I've heard over and over and over, any brewery you go to, it's like, oh yeah, we were brewing this one day and we realized, we didn't have all the hops we needed for this, and we called up so-and-so, and they're like, oh, here, just, get us back next time or something.
Yeah.
They don't even worry about the money that much usually. So
we had a lager that we canned called Floof, and really awesome beer, and I love the story behind it because it was the first batch of it we used. We got a brink of yeast from Zwei, and they're kind of German lager yeast.
But yeah, Peter got the hops from a friend in France, right? Yeah, it was just like, it wasn't intentional. It wasn't an intentional recipe. It just like happened that way. So it's kind of a lot of things happen.
We went to Madrid to a conference last year, and it was so much fun to see so much Europeans back there, again with COVID that we hadn't seen for such a long time.
Right.
And it's a whole different continent, but it's similar. It's different and it's similar. It was so much fun to hang out and late in the evening with people that you hadn't seen for.
Yeah, but in the beginning when we moved, it was really hard on the Belgian brewers.
Yep.
They called us treaters.
Oh, because you left Belgium, man. You're not supposed to leave Belgium, especially for America. Speaking on travel and things, you said you have more goals of traveling more. You've already traveled like a lot. Do you have any specific travel stories you like to tell?
So we do a lot of international travel. Peter is a very good consultant. Together we do international judging. And I still do the New Belgium trips. But with those trips I take about 160 people to Belgium right now.
Okay.
But also at the same time, we are starting our own Belgium trip. So in September, we're gonna do one. So if you're interested, we have a couple of spots left.
What time is it? What date?
September 28th.
No, we do our own event. It's September 28th through October 1st. It's all around beer and like mountain biking.
Nice.
And that's going to be up by Glacier National Park this year.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
So okay, so next time.
Yeah, next year. So since we have been going to Belgium so often, we now are starting to organize the Belgium trip and do all the breweries we love. And
So are you going to do this annually?
Oh, anyway.
we will see how it goes, but we will see how it goes. We have been doing that.
But are you guys going? Have you been?
Haven't before.
But you're going this time?
Yeah.
Oh, so exciting.
Got just an email from the brewmaster from Arval, Anne-Françoise. So she's like, we can set that up. We're going to do the tour with you. And it's a brewery where you don't really get in. So
Normally don't get in.
the Trappist brewery.
All right, all you brewery and distillery owners out there, you can't exactly just decide to be a Trappist brewery or a Trappist distillery, which I don't even know if there are any, and have people come in. But you can just decide to become a harvest host, just like Peter and the folks over at Purpose Brewing Cellars.
So, if you're a brewery or a distillery owner and you're interested in earning extra revenue, it's simple. Check out Harvest Hosts, which is a free marketing opportunity for small businesses. All you have to do is open up at least one space for self-contained RVers to stay overnight at your property. In return, the RVers patronize your business. There's no electrical or water hookups required. All you have to do is visit harvesthosts.com/hosts to get started today. And be sure to mention Living a Stout Life sent you.
So you all know we're fans of Harvest Hosts, but we're also fans of the beer at Purpose Brewing and Cellars. So let's get back to Frezi, who is talking about a really unique aspect of their business, which is their constantly changing tap list.
When you look at our menu, we always have 5 different beers every week. Only 2 of those are sours. A lot of people are confused about that. A lot of people think all 5 of them are sours. No, there's always fun stuff, and only 2 of them are sours.
Yeah. And actually, before we get into that, do you have an opinion on that word sour? Because a lot of people are kind of soured, pun intended, by the word. They don't understand exactly what it is.
It's an interesting term when you use it to describe a kettle sour, which is vastly different usually than a barrel fermenting.
One of the titles of somebody else who wrote an article states, Peter, the man who made America sour. And Peter's like, no, that's somebody else with a red cap on his head.
The sours, I don't really speak English, so for me my vocabulary is not that good in defining beer. In Belgium we call it sour browns.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. What do we call it then?
Flanders
we
red.
do here anyway.
Flanders red.
Flanders red, and so people know by definition that it's going to be sour. Sour was also not a flavor that was in beer here, where it always was in Belgium. Always is also a big word, but through history, if you look through history, sour has always been there for only 13,000 years, but we forgot. And then when the beer world became very fucking close to water here, we forgot so much that and then craft brewers started. But if you look here, Colorado, central in the US, we had initially German and English styles, Odell's, and it was the brewery that became Fort Collins AC Burger. Here were German and was Odell's was English. And then New Belgium started Belgium, and Belgium was weird. When Pierre Celis had to close his brewery or sell it for 100% to Miller, I was outside in New Belgium and I see him arriving in a taxi. He comes to me. I said, Peter, I need to talk to Kim and Jeff. I'm like, I don't know if they're around. Let's look. And the only reason why he came is like, look, I had to close my brewery. I made a kind of a bad deal with selling 50% to Miller, and there were some clauses that I had to go to 100% if blah 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 happened, and so that happened. So he's like, now you're the only one who creates Belgian beers in the U.S. And that perspective was exaggerated, but if you look at that time, it was a good statement.
And for the longest time, Belgium was only known as being funky.
Yeah, so we started with sours, but we didn't make kettle sours because we screwed it up initially. We only started looking to kettle sours way later, actually early if you look at the American brewing industry. But so we started buying foeders and did it the right way, or at least more complex flavor-wise. Mm-hmm. And since I came from Rodenbach and had done it for a while there, that's how we started. Market was not very ready. How do you brand it? How do you call it? And when La Folie won the first time, I think in the GABF in '99, there was not even a sour beer category.
Right.
Yeah, but if you look at the time frame, it's completely normal. And won gold in other Belgians or something, and then the next year we had a sour beer category. If you see how many sour beer categories there are now, the GABF is a lagging indicator. They're going to try to accommodate what American brewers have been creating, and we've been creating way more all the time. And for me, I'm happy that kettle sours took off, because it's an introduction sour. Lactic is kind of sweet and sour, and then if you flavor it up, and there's always, for me, tomato soup aroma to it, and you need to mask that with something that's going to be more powerful and fruit, or can really help there. Sours as such, barrel-aged sours are really hard to produce. And we saw quite some investments happening, but if you look at the overall output of those sours, it's relatively marginal. Yeah, still compared to Belgium, it's very marginal, although there's a lot of people playing in that field. There's been a decline now, maybe due to kettle sours. The sours are declining, but I think we kind of maybe screwed the flavor up with kettle sours. That's my story. I don't know. I'm too low to the grass now to know where the storms are. But it's been an evolution, but it had to be introduced from zero. Nobody was doing it, and now people almost think, there was a period maybe a couple of years ago that everybody expected you that you were going to do barrel aged when you started the brewery. Why? Did I answer a question, or was it the wrong question?
No. Yeah, I'm just curious more about. There's just this kind of stigma, I think, around the word sour sometimes. When you walk into a brewery or someone says it's sour, and someone's like, "Well, how sour is it?"
And to me, kettle sour adds to that because of the process of it. It just gives you that just guttural sourness. It doesn't have the complexity of the barrel-aged sours.
I think also with La Folie, who was kind of the leader and the first one out there, we went native sharp also, and we kind of pissed off customers or didn't bring in new customers. That's something from my perspective. But locally here, for Collins, if something is really pungent sour, people love it. I'm like, ooh. Yeah, I'm gonna take the rust off my.
Even Purpose are sour. Well, if we have one pungent sour, we always gonna have a soft sour as well.
We balance it out because we can do it with our menu now. So, but I'm afraid it's like bitter. West Coast IPAs went to harsh bitterness, high and harsh bitterness, who's a poisonous flavor. If you look at human senses. Initially, it's something you don't want to eat. Sharp sour is going to go in the same direction, and so American brewers like to go. They find something and then they go extreme, and it's like an atomic bomb that explodes, and somebody's going to make something that's going to be the hottest pepper on earth. They're like can't even take a sip of this. Right. But that's American brewers. It all comes back a little bit. I think if you look at high cuisine. Hey, you're not gonna get something the hottest food out there, or you're not gonna get the sours. You're gonna get something that is well married, and to me, that's how you need to approach a beer. And you're gonna make something that's well married. You're gonna make something that people they say there's grapes in it. I don't get the grapes. Oh wait, and so that you have to kind of dig and in your memory and also in your flavor pattern to kind of figure it out. And that, in my eyes, is something that can last way longer than those explosion sour things or fruity things or bitter things. But we're American brewers, we like to have fun and we like to be extreme, and we do it anyway. And if the customers drink it, that's good. And if they don't drink it, well, we're going to make something else,
Yeah.
Well, and for good or bad, that does make it fun, though, because you can be what you want to be, and there's room for everybody to play in the space. And it's like, but I am definitely more down that same line of like. April's right there every time, like complaining that I'm drinking my beer too slow, because it's like I'm the one sitting there like smelling it, swashing it around in my mouth, and trying to figure out what I'm tasting. And she's like, would you just drink it?
I suppose that's no, not all the time. I suppose
Not
like,
all
I really
the
just
time.
want to drink a
Not
beer.
all the
Maybe it's
time.
time for a PBR or something.
I didn't think that word was gonna fall out. Yeah, but that's why I always go to, like, when I go to a new brewery, I always take a flight whenever I go to a brewery, because there's always one that I'm not gonna drink, but
Right.
But that's a good way to taste stuff that you're like, I think I'm not going to like that. But
Yeah.
you never know. And sometimes you discover something really exciting
Correct.
that you would never have drank before if you had to order a whole pint of it.
Yeah.
Or
I
something.
think, I don't know if it's all across the globe or not, but I think with here in the United States at least, that there's a lot of people who are just like, oh, I don't like beer. So they don't even want to bother trying. And then when you actually come in and just taste the different flavors, you're like, wow, okay, this is
Yeah.
beer.
This is beer.
We get people who are confused when they come in because it's Purpose Brewing and Cellars, and so they come and they expect wine.
Wine.
But they don't get wine. Sometimes I can get them. Sometimes I'm like, hey, just try this.
Right.
Maybe you might like that. It came from a wine barrel, this one specifically, and I'll pull a nail if I think that's what they'd want to try. I'll go in there and find exactly what I think that they would want, right? And then sometimes you get people, you can convert them, or people will say like, I like things that don't taste like beer, and it's like, I got you. Like, all of our menu is so unique at any
Yes.
given time. And of course I can always like rely on the barrels basically. So
yeah, the campfire is quite some people.
Yeah, it's that's why I love doing the bar. I'm doing a job in Barcelona also, and there's a lady that moved here for a while, and she was from Barcelona, and she had seen that Cellars, and she said, "No, we make beer." And she's like, "Yeah, I don't drink beer. I only drink maybe some light beer." And so you start talking. You say, "Yeah, but you also have very good food." You know what I did? I made a panatomaque. It's the bread you get in Barcelona with garlic rubbed in and tomato, and then you add some salt and pepper, or maybe some olive oil if you want to. And say, "Look, I made a beer like this." She's like, "Huh?" And so you start to intrigue them, and then you start to give her some things. You build up, and she became a regular here while she was here.
Yes.
But somebody, it's something that is not possible by any large brewery, because you only have 3 words to describe a beer, and to a distributor it's the same. We have only 3 beers that you need to sell, and we have those. And they're already getting tired about you presenting about the beers. But here you can do this, and you can really convince people to open their mind. If they don't like beer, maybe they had a beer that they really didn't like. If you have a West Coast IPA or a La Folie as your first beer, it's going to be really hard to be convinced that beer is going to be interesting. But then there's so much stuff that you can do with a beer, flavor-wise, and stretch it in different directions, that it's never ends. We made a Captinis when did we do that? Thursday in Equinox, in a brewery here.
Okay.
So where you bake the mash, and it's an ancient
You
beer history.
Bake the mash.
It's something that we totally forgot about, because now we work in stainless and we forgot about wood. But we've only been again for wood is relatively recent. It's only like maybe 3,000 years maximum that we've been working with wood barrels. But before that we had leather bladders, rocks, pots, and so we forgot, because we work in stainless. And so baking the mash we forgot. And so what are the different dimensions, process, ingredients, wise that you can play with? And there's so much to do still. We're just on the verge of something.
Yeah, it still feels like we're just toddlers with American craft beer.
Well, American
wandering
craft beer
around.
is.
It's funny because you've seen all this, so much has happened, over the last like 30 to 40 years. There's been so much of an explosion. It feels like a lot, like it's really big. But then you look at now, we're just coming to that point where it's starting to circle back to where a lot of breweries that were going off in every direction are going, wait a minute, let's get better at our craft and actually make good quality beer, not just the newest thing, not the fanciest thing. It's like you're seeing lagers now a lot more than ever before, other than the lager, the clear fizzy lagers that we had for decades. That's all we had, was just a clear lager that had no flavor. But now we're seeing all Dunkels and Weizenbachs and all kinds of beers that Americans are, what is that? Schwarz beer. That's mostly a reference to Spaceballs for most people. Schwarz beer.
You don't get it, but no, you don't get it.
I saw Spaceballs.
With the Schwarz beer.
That's jam, man.
Yeah.
So speaking of all that, like you talk a lot about different flavors and ingredients and mixing. How much has your guys' travels influenced your beer making?
We traveled quite a bit, but a lot of times, well, my dad is an artist, and we have some chefs, they are artists, and brewer is as much an artist, and you do ideas up wherever you go. You do ingredients, you find ingredients wherever you go, but any little art piece you make, any brew you make, that is 30 years of history and a day of brewing.
Amen.
That's an art gallery back there. I looked at that.
That's
It's
a good
an art
one.
Well,
gallery.
and how about you guys being from Wisconsin? How much influence do you bring from there? Especially, I'm thinking of the Bloody Mary scene. I don't know if you guys have been to Wisconsin, but the Bloody Mary scene there is like over the top insane.
Yeah.
Like every Bloody Mary is like a meal and dessert and everything on top of the Bloody Mary.
But
I
yeah,
think
but
it's
the
vodka
most,
soup.
I'm gonna let you talk right away, but the most well-known beers, they're just because people know them. Like we have a Taco Street beer. Everybody is still asking, hey, do you still have the taco beer? We have the Panatomaque. So even the Bloody Mary, you can make a beer that tastes exactly
Oh, yeah.
like it.
Oh yeah.
The micheladas now.
Yeah.
So you were going to say something about like you should be thinking about
Nuclearis's Lambics, the the Belgian red. I mean, I think they had. It's just really good. I don't know. That's when we go back there, we always get those. It's awesome. Highly recommend if you go there.
Yeah.
But everywhere you go, no matter what you're tasting, seeing, experiencing, it's going to become a part of whatever business you do or create. It should. Like that's because if it's your business, it should have a piece of you in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've always loved. I mean, like we said, when we lived in Denver, we came up here and we were like blown away, and we had a plan, right? We'd come up, we'd be like, okay, we're gonna hit Purpose, we're gonna hit Jessup and Zwei, and maybe we'll make it to Wellworks, and that's what we would say. And then we would get to Purpose, and we'd have a flight, and then James would say, you can't really have any more beer if you want to hit all these other places. And I was like, I'm gonna get another beer. And then we would make it to Zwei and maybe Jessup.
You make a plan. That's
Yeah.
good. For anything, you make
Yeah,
a plan.
make a
But
plan.
then you have to always be willing to let that plan go the hell away. Everything else is going to make that plan for you.
Yeah, because sometimes you're just enjoying yourself too much where you're
Yeah,
at.
exactly.
And then sometimes it's more important to just be in the moment. And it's like, hopefully that brewery will still be there tomorrow or the
Yeah,
next day.
for sure.
So I did read somewhere you said that I think one of your big goals or something was to you wouldn't rest until there was a Bud Light sour.
I was gonna say
How close are we?
Barrels PBR.
Does buying Wicked Weed count, or do they have to actually make a Bud Light sour?
But they still don't call it Bud Light Sour. No,
So
what
we
I mean
need a-
also is that they go it into the big brands with sour. That would be like nuts.
Right.
Because then we made it. Yeah.
Right.
We already made it with craft because they started to trying to make something like us, and then they started buying breweries because that was cheaper.
Right.
And so in that sense we made it, but they still don't have Bud Light Sour, I think. But I'm so low to the grass now, I don't know.
I don't think we need a Bud Light sour.
I'm all for
A
it.
barrel-aged Bud Light, that would be like...
Yeah, don't do it, because I know you're gonna die whenever your goal is met, so don't do it.
I mean, I don't know, purpose and intention and all the little acorns that come out of purpose.
I think the other part was purpose is like a big word.
Yes.
And so that's why we want to keep it whimsical also. Because purpose, to me, beer is whimsical. Beer is only 10 minutes of pleasure, and that's the only thing we do. 10 minutes of pleasure, we we talk a bit about the beer and then we go on with our real conversations. And for me, that's why beer, it's just 10 minutes of pleasure.
For you, a lot of times a little faster than that.
I'm thirsty.
Cheers to the 10 minutes
and you know, you have to look in the eyes when you say cheers, so you didn't do it, so it's bad sex for a year.
Uh-oh.
It's too late.
Shit, damn it.
Yeah, it's only a year.
I'll do it again.
It doesn't help.
So you know the look in the eyes?
I have not heard that one.
Very, very long time in history. It was actually the two glasses had to cling and some of the liquid had to spill from one to the other.
Okay.
So that you couldn't poison each other. That's way too long back in history.
Okay.
Nowadays it's good luck, or if you ching, you have to look each other in the eyes. And if you don't, bad luck that night. Whatever you think about that. Bad sex for a year. That's what Peter says. One of my tours in New Belgium, I had a really fun group. It was just crazy. That's not one of the stories you normally tell on your New Belgium tours, but I did. It was a bachelor group. So I said, okay, you have to look into the eyes or not luck tonight. And then one of the bachelors came over to me. He was like, okay, can we ching again? I was like, sure, why not? Hey, I want to fun. And as soon as the glasses were gonna cling, he looked away. I was like, what the F are you doing to me? He's like, oh, I'm so sorry. That was not meant for you because I think you're gonna have it anyway. But it was meant for me. I'm like, okay, tell me more. What is going on here? It was like, bad is better than none, you know.
That's good. Okay, wait, we got one too now. So you know when you done the cheers and then you do the, do you know that one is like to those who are here and to those who are not, right? When you tap.
Yeah.
So we were interviewing Tim Myers at Strangecraft, a few years ago.
Oh, we don't know that guy.
And we'll never admit it anyway.
He's here all the time now. His son goes to see
His son is in CSU.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So we were interviewing him, and he was telling us a story at the very end. So we did the cheers at the end. We did the cheers, and we did the tap. And he's like, "Oh, I have a story to tell you about that one." And we're like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah." So I was doing a cheers, and like my friend did the tap, and I was like, he was asking his friend, like, "Why are you tapping it? What's the purpose of that?" He's like, "Well, you're cheersing for those who are here, and then when you tap something on the table, it's for those who are not." And Tim said, "But they're not here. Who cares? Like, they're here." And then she said, "It's because they're dead." He's like, He's like, "Now I understood."
Yes.
Okay, we're getting old. We're gonna have to start doing that.
No, and I think that's more a German thing because they killed a lot of people.
Oh, because they're
Glad we're still recording.
Sorry, we Belgians. There's an issue between the Belgians. Yeah, a lot of people visit Belgium too long.
I mean, you guys are traders now. I don't know. Can you go back?
It's better now. After so many years, since '96, it's better. That's
good.
So yeah, now we go back.
Well, thank you guys so much.
Yeah.
Like, this was fun
Fun.
too.
Thank you.
So who would have ever thought that we would have started our conversation with Peter and the rest of the team at Purpose, talking typically about beers and sour beers and, like, you know, how he brought all these different Belgian beers from Belgium to obviously to New Belgium to now to Purpose, and their traveling excursions and all that, from that to whether it's better to have bad sex or no sex at all. Right?
All I know is when we're cheersing, I gotta look you straight in the eyes.
Should we practice right now before we cheers? Oh, remember how you said that Frezi also said that it was supposed to kind of, the liquid was supposed to mix?
Oh, I can't.
You're screwed or not screwed? Okay.
Well, yeah.
But I guess what I was thinking of, like, after talking to them and ending the podcast with that, it just goes to show that you can just have a great conversation with anybody if you just open up and start talking and around a table with a good beer in hand. And that's exactly what it was. It's just hanging out with felt like friends around the table with actually some excellent beer in hand.
Excellent beer, excellent people, excellent conversation.
Yeah.
And that's what makes beer so much fun to me. It's like, you could ask me what brewers would I want to meet in the world, because like there's certain ones that are like the trendsetters or the ones that broke ground, and Peter Bouckaert is definitely one of them. In my eyes, he's a rock star in the brewing industry, just like Sam Calgione, Garrett Oliver, a lot of people. And we've been fortunate to meet many of these people. But when you stand there, you start talking with them, it's not like other things. It's just, we all come together around good beer. So it's pretty easy to talk to most of these people and to just connect with those people,
and a lot of people put them up on a pedestal kind of thing.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, you realize that you're all just people trying to do what you set out to do in the first place, whatever that is. You never really set out to be a hero to other people or to be someone that you just don't generally set out to be that. You're just doing your best in creating your life. And it turns out that sometimes you have people looking up to you for that. And then in the end, though, like I just said, and I'll repeat it again, we're all just people. And it's all just people sitting around a table, having a good drink and having a good conversation.
Absolutely.
And I think that's exactly what we just did, and it was great. And I hope we can have many more with all of them. Peter, Frezi, Ashley, and James.
Oh, there's going to be plenty more conversations, because we will for sure be back in Fort Collins, and we've got some ideas of going to Belgium. So.
Oh, speaking of Belgium, really? Peter Frezi, are you kidding me? You have to sit there and put your Belgium event this year on the same dates as our Camp Carpe Diem event. How, nice job. I'm doing it in the fall in Belgium.
Oh, heck yeah.
But now to our listeners, how do you choose? Belgium or Montana with us?
We're pretty cool, though.
We are pretty cool.
And, we'll have beer. We'll have bikes. There'll be photos being taken.
Let me tell you, though, if you do ever get a chance to go to Belgium with Peter and Frezi, you should go.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't get a chance to go to Belgium with Peter and Frezi, then you should come to Camp Carpe Diem. And maybe that's a really smooth transition, too. Keeping in mind that Camp Carpe Diem tickets for 2023 have opened up, and you can buy tickets now to the coolest adult camp ever. Should I start the whole thing, or should I start something new? Or should I keep the whole CAMPCARPEDIEM.com?
Yes.
Okay.
Keep it.
Okay, so for those of you who can't make it to Belgium this year, go to Camp Carpe Diem, September 28th through October 1st. We would love to see you all there, and we can totally be drinking some beers that are from Belgium.
We'll be hanging around if you don't know, up in Montana, it's going to be up around in the Flathead Valley, up around Kalispell, Columbia Falls, Big Fork. These are the little towns nearby. And also there's a little thing called Glacier National Park right there that just is
just a little thing.
Just a little thing that's pretty freaking stunning. Yeah. But
okay.
Anyway.
So we are going to sign out because I am going to enjoy immensely the rest of this PH2 barrel-aged golden sour. And by the way, if any of you do happen to come across any barrels that you might think might belong back in Purpose, reach out. That would be really cool if you see something that is possible.
But having seen a couple of those barrels, it's going to be pretty hard to know.
Yeah. But if
unless you know, you don't know.
If you're in the industry, it could happen.
It could happen.
Hopefully you're not the one who turned one of them into the flower pots.
Oh. Oh, well.
On that note, if you were the one that turned one of those barrels into a flower pot, I think, yeah, you just do. Because you just owe somebody something, so you might as well just owe it to us. You owe us lots of beer. So buy us a beer. Click the link, buy us a beer. Yeah, and do all the whole thing. Like subscribe, tell your friends. All that jazz.
Yep.
Yeah, and when you're in Purpose, you will more than likely see Ashley behind the bar, but you might also have Peter serving you a beer.
It can happen.
And either way, both of them are great people, so just, say cheers.
Definitely.
On that note.
Cheers.
Glasses are still full. Time to keep drinking. Peace out. We'd love to hear from you, so keep the conversation going. Send us a note, share a beer recommendation or two, or just say hey. This Stout Conversation has been brought to you by livingastoutlife.com, where you can find community and resources for all your craft beer travel and adventure lifestyle needs.